missing a single requirement, change in like a late stage amendment, almost like an immediate disqualification.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Optimized podcast from the VisibleThread. I'm your host, Chris Ham, and today I am joined with Tim Brett from VisibleThread. So welcome to the podcast, Tim.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
All right. So tell me, what do you do for VisibleThread and why do you work there? What's the title? What's the job? And how did you get there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just joined VisibleThread. I've been here for just over about a month now. Fergal, the founder, brought me in, and I'm VP of Product and New Markets. So really taking all the great work that the VisibleThread team has done the past year on the product and just looking to continually help enhance the product, as well as looking at new markets that we're looking at to explore. My previous life, I was at Input GovWin Deltech for about 23 years. Input was the market intelligence provider that Deltech acquired, which then morphed into GovWin IQ. I sat on the state and local and Canadian market offering section of that product. So really led the product roadmap for GovWin IQ for state, local, and education data, and really managed kind of all the data aggregation that really went behind, populating the GovWin IQ database and managing the team of researchers that did a lot of great work supporting the BT clients that utilized IQ.
All right, so let's go back in the time machine.
Yeah.
I don't think it was you calling me, but I know that I got a lot of calls from Input, late 90s, early 2000s. I'm probably not alone. There's probably some database somewhere of, government officials or 1102s, however you got it. So like, what was that? Like, how did you get the information? And then who was the buyer? Like, how did that work? Because I know that, the rest of the world doesn't realize that like access to information around is something coming and who's buying it and when that is like a weird secret in government procurement.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of the big pillars of the Input offering was, and I think if you take a look at today, there's just tons and tons of companies popping up that have, web scraping ability and just data collection. Really the value that Input provided back in those days and still to this day was that human intelligence aspect. So, we had a team of analysts that I would always equate to kind of like investigative journalists, right? Where we take a nugget of information. It might be a line item in a budget that is talking about the government may be looking for some type of solution, right? And then our analysts would really work that opportunity and try to uncover more information about that project. And that usually required us calling into the government officials who were either, the program managers for that opportunity or the contract officers for that opportunity, and try to pull out as much information that we could potentially get about that future procurement and then provide that directly to our clients. And then really throughout that life cycle of that opportunity, we called it like tracking it cradle to the grave, right? So we find out about a pre-RFP project, solicitation gets released. We continually talk with the government officials on where they're at in that procurement process, getting timely, valuable information and updating that record in the Input GovWin database to inform the clients, and tracking that all the way up through the award. So yeah, we've got a lot of calls from Input GovWin analysts and been like, hey, what's the status of this opportunity? Where's it at? And we probably made your life very painful at times with trying to get that information.
There was one time I had a major procurement that I was running for the Homeland Security, and I noticed that the information, I think at this time it was GovWin versus Input, that the information was inaccurate. So it was the first time they ever did this. I called GovWin and said, it's wrong. And they said, well, our sources disagree. And I was like, I'm the source. It's my like, please edit this because like it was misinformation. It was a
Yeah,
problem. So it didn't change. So it was funny that after years of them hounding me, I wanted to hound them back and it didn't work.
that's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's unfortunately, that there's those times with human intelligence where, the analyst may be hearing one thing in one ear and translating it in a different way. But yeah, we were always trying to get the most accurate information. And then, obviously as time has improved, being able to really pull a lot of that data automatically from sites and stuff and more sources, and combining that with that human intelligence really, I think, set the GovWin solution apart from the rest of the offerings out there.
So what was your experience or, yours or the corporate experience? What was your hit rate of actually getting a meaningful response versus like, the emails and phone calls? Is it a low percentage? I assume it's a low percentage, right?
Yeah, I'd say on the state and local side, it was we were a little bit more successful. I think states and their procurement officers were more willing to work with us. How we always kind of framed it was like one call serving many clients, right? So instead of all the vendors that are trying to do business and calling you, we're that one central kind of point of contact that we can get that piece of information out to, thousands of clients so they're not bombarding you. So I think the state and local procurement officers felt a little differently and worked with us a bit more closely. We'd also try to spin it as well that, we gave access to government officials, free access to the IQ solution. So that made it a little bit of a softer play as well, that they could come in and utilize our services to see, what vendors are out there, what other state and local governments are doing procurement wise. Yeah, on the federal side, it's definitely a little bit was a little bit more trickier. Obviously with all the FAR rules and procurement rules and codes of silence and stuff. Um, that could be challenging. And, some officials preferred us calling them. Some officials preferred, hey, just shoot me an email and I'll respond to you that way. But I'd say our analyst team was always pretty resilient and aggressive on trying to get those updates and finding ways to get the information they needed to.
Yeah. I had the benefit of, being over a procurement organization. So like I worked with industry a lot. So I understood the industry needs for like, just general information. How much is it? What vehicle is it coming out on? Like when? Like is it coming out in spring or in summer? Because it matters. Like,
It does,
the
yeah.
little details really matter. And I often and strongly encouraged the workforce to engage with whoever asks. Like they're they're not calling you because they're bored. They're calling you because like like it impacts something. Like who's going to be the project manager, or are we going to bid on it? Do we have the money to bid on it? Like this information isn't just like, "Hell, we just want to know."
Right.
And the fall rules are like very clear. You are allowed to talk. Like, just say the same stuff to everybody and don't, give favoritism. And like it is
Exactly.
100% in bounds. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
how is that background? How does that, that history now inform the work that you're doing with Visible Thread?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I primarily concentrated on building product at GovWin IQ. Now, obviously, GovWin, was a little bit different. That product was a lot around data and data collection. And that was one of my big areas of focus. But ultimately understanding a client's pain points and what they need, and then translating that into building product. That's what I've been bringing over to VisibleThread. Additionally, just as part of the recent rollout of the new platform for VisibleThread 7.0, there's a new section in the solution focused specifically for BD and capture, and so that first foray of pulling in some project information. So we have a SAM.gov data pool now that pulls all the SAM notices directly into VisibleThread. And so now we're looking to even expand that into new markets and geography, and that's where some of my background comes in on. Okay, where are some of those data feeds? Whether it's looking at, for example, the UK market, right, and their equivalent of SAM is find a tender. So really figuring out how we go about and digesting that project information, the tenders, what they call over in the UK, and how we load that and present that to our customers. So really helping the team just kind of define what the roadmap is, which the existing team has done a phenomenal job with, and just continuing enhancing that and bringing some best practices in product management on just, really kind of shoring some stuff up. Um, I think also just some of my industry expertise in just, government contracting in general. That plays nicely. A lot of our clients that utilize VisibleThread, are focused on government procurement. So being able to kind of translate some of those industry needs and trends on how that may shape the product going in the future.
All right, so you talked about SAM, System for Reward Management. And the first thing my government brain did when you said find a tender is we would have called that FAT. Like that would have instantly been an acronym.
Yeah.
Are there, like there's got to be other ones that, that you're doing integration with that I've never heard of. Like, are there any other, very big name things for other countries or state and local? Like it is the, the vault or, so is there other things that, you could teach the audience about?
Yeah, yeah, they're definitely, as we're looking at other like, and we're looking at the Australian market as well. Their main procurement platform is called OzTender. So very similar to like a SAM notice where all their solicitations for their central government flows through that. Um, Within the European Union, it's called TEDS, which I'm drawing the blank. It's their main tendering source that all the EU nations utilize to populate their procurement notices. So that's another major one that we're taking a look at to see if we want to do some data aggregation. So it's 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 impressive. I mean, there's a lot of portals out there. There's a lot of other what I would call more like market intelligence providers, like a GovWin IQ that exist in those various geographic markets. In the UK alone, like you have a company called Tussle or BIP Solutions that I think are mirror very well to what a GovWin IQ does as well. Um, in the Australian market, there's a couple other new ones like Tender Trace is popping up, Tendel, that do some of that kind of data aggregation and, putting some bells and whistles on those solutions as well. Where I think Visible Thread wants to sit, we don't want to come in and say we're the new kid on the block as far as a market intelligence provider. We really want to make life easy for that full end-to-end kind of capture process where, we'll bring in some of that project information to then help our clients kind of kickstart the whole path of, all right, now we need to put a capture team together. We need to kick off the proposal. We need to do some compliance matrices. We need to do a proposal outline, maybe using some AI prompting, and then getting that proposal out and eventually, hopefully, winning that project.
Do you think the origin of not just the companies we mentioned, but also like the current market intelligence and data aggregators is due to the poor design of FPDS and SAM.gov, or do you think they would exist anyway? Like there's, obviously there's been more functionality that comes out of them, but I mean, like these websites are by reviled by like the community.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a user my entire career, and like it's in another language. It's just weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think these providers would still exist. I think the government has gotten better as far as like consolidating some of them and, have PDS now moving into SAM and making the usability and user experience a bit better. I think where these market intelligence providers really offer some help is not necessarily just aggregating the data, but connecting the dots between different data elements and providing analysis around those. A lot of clients may be able to find the information, but then not be able to really translate. Like, what does this mean? How do I need to position myself to potentially win this business? What other competitors out there? What are some competitive gaps? Looking at past performance data, for example, and maybe seeing where my competitors are doing really well if they're incumbencies. So while the government, like I said, has gotten better with where they're putting the data, I still think you need these providers to provide that intelligence and analysis around it as well.
So the past performance data, is this also human based, or is that, the old peepers, CPARs kind of feedback? Like, where's that coming from?
Yeah, most of the past performance, like getting IQ, that would be a lot of the FPDS data pulls, so pulling on all those contract awards. Uh, CPARS data, I don't think that's ever been publicly available, so that would never been something, that the IQ team would have been able to aggregate and provide. Um, I mean, you are seeing some new providers, at least on the SLED side, that are trying to do, what I call, like, almost like a Yelp of government contracting. There's a cool local company, called Procurated that, is allowing government officials to rate vendors that they're doing business with, and then that's a solution that, vendors could come in and see, "Okay, how am I being rated across these various governments that I work with?" So that's a pretty cool transparency, product that is making waves. But yeah, I haven't seen, past performance data on the federal side. There hasn't been any offering or intelligence provider that I've seen that has been able to, like, aggregate or get their hands on that data.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, as a person who used to populate some of that data, the system itself is pretty archaic, and it asks for paragraph level information on, like, the level of detail that no one would actually read as a Yelp review. Like, how well was
Yeah,
their subcontractor management, supplier system, cybersecurity? You're just like, no one
yeah,
cares. The better way would be the 5-star scale, and maybe a comment feature, like, commercial markets have solved how we do feedback. We should probably just adopt versions of that.
exactly, yeah. Was the project delivered on time, right? Did they stay in scope? Did they meet various milestones? And yeah, 1 to 5-star rating, like, and that's what this, Procurated's doing is pretty unique, like, really kinda making that quick analysis so a contractor or a buyer can say, "Okay, these guys are ranked like a 2.3 out of 5 stars, and they're really risky around, meeting deliverables on, supplies or something like that." And so giving that really quick analysis of, like, okay, maybe these are guys I really don't shouldn't consider doing business with.
Yeah. But then they would sue us and try and change their number, and,
Yeah,
AstroTurf it and get to a higher number. I mean, that's a
exactly.
whole new business opportunity for somebody else to get your number up.
100%.
Yeah. Alright, so let's move on to the 7.0 platform. So,
Yeah.
I am not a active user of VisibleThread, and so, well, why is, VisibleThread Fast and Furious 7? What is compelling here about the new platform?
Yeah, it's really, it's not just a software update for us. Really, it's built like a full end-to-end high secure system of record for the entire bidding life cycle, giving teams the tools they need without the risk. So as I mentioned, you first come in, we've integrated access directly to SAM.gov right inside the platform. This is allowing our users, you aren't having to leave your workspace to hunt for opportunities. This data is coming directly to you. But, I think really some of the game changers is what happens next after those opportunities come in. We've introduced data back scoring for your bid, no bid decisions. The tool automatically can cross check complex requirements of a solicitation against your company's past performance and technical fit. We're really trying to replace gut feelings and emotional attachments to bids with objective data back scoring, letting teams fail fast on the wrong bid so they can pour their resources in the right one.
Alright, so I'm gonna stop you there because, like, I don't I've I see this. Um, Somebody in whatever company is using the software, or, just generally using government work, somebody there's job is to capture the civilian health market. Like, they're VP of civilian health, and there's, 17 things that are on the list, and, like, their job is to make number go up. Like, they must go win whatever. And so, like, they say they have customer intimacy, they say they're interested in, like, our company obviously does that. How would VisibleThread, um, help the manager of the VP of civilian health say, like, you know what, we're not actually we don't actually really have a good shot at this one. Like, where does the data come from, and how does it like actually force that to be an earlier conversation versus like the drawn out? We're still chasing it, but then like we make a no bid decision late.
Yeah, yeah. So, at a high level, what we call our technical alignment, it's to your point, it's probably a really quick analysis of like, have I worked with this customer before? Is this opportunity in my wheelhouse based on NAICS codes? Is it a good area, place of performance? Do we have some relationship with that entity? So that's how we kind of try to position it for the clients, like a really quick analysis of like, hey, this looks good. But then behind the wheels, then it's really once that solicitation out, this is where a lot of the magic of the visible thread comes in with, going through the solicitation document, doing compliance matrix to making sure that everything looks good. Um, really, really leveraging, like, using acronym reports, making sure we're pulling out all acronyms that are, we're gonna be compliant on the bid and stuff. But that pre-work, to your point on the DD stuff, I still think there's probably a lot of work that the capture team is probably doing outside of the Visible Thread tool, and this is where, probably some of those market intelligence providers still kinda have a lane to swim in where they may be doing more upfront lifting and upfront research within like a GovWin tool of like, okay, you know, we think this project's to be coming out in the next like 6 months. Like, let's get our ducks in a row. Like, what companies have worked with those agencies before? If we need to go like the teaming route, right? If it's a recompete, like, do we have our hands on the previous contract award that we can kind of go through that document to see, what the winning themes were. So there's a lot of, I think, that work kind of upfront that may be outside of the Visible Thread platform, but then really once more that solicitation is out and coming out, this is where Visible Thread really has that sweet spot and kind of hits home.
I mean, just reminded me of one of the things that I tried to do. This probably 10 years ago as a pilot, and it never worked, and it still frustrates me. Copy of the last contract. So, the contract task order, whatever it is, the government awards it, and it's not always publicly available. And so there's this niche industry that will then FOIA a copy of it, and then the government has to redact it, remove
Hmm.
basically the numbers, the pricing kind of stuff, a couple of other things. And then, then this company that has FOIA'd it now has created like this valuable asset that then they sell to other people. Whereas the government should just require every contract that's awarded. So, like, something's awarded to Company X should just redact it and should just post it on SAM.gov. Like, just make it available. It would solve so much.
It would make life a lot easier, and that was a big portion of some of the value add work that the IQ team provided as well, where, we were submitting FOIAs left and right on behalf of our clients where, it was coming directly from GovWin IQ and, that was allowing the clients to stay anonymous. But to your point, yeah, it would be amazing to see the federal government just change their posture on that. And to your point, like anytime a award is made, go ahead, redact any company sensitive information, and then upload it. We put a lot of FOIA companies out of business, but man, it would make life a lot easier. And I'm sure all those FOIA officers would love not having to respond to thousands of FOIA requests on a daily, weekly, monthly basis as well.
Yeah, my apologies to the FOIA group. I didn't mean to blow up your business, but
Yeah,
since the government's doing CUI markings on documents, I don't think that you're at risk. I think this
yeah,
only
exactly.
continues. All right. So once the solicitation is out and the software is doing compliance and shredding, like what's the level of engagement in the Visible Thread tool versus like companies doing their own like normal Shipley kind of processes? Like, is it are the things integrated, or is there like a natural break point?
Yeah, so, some of the stuff that we've introduced that helps with that proposal stuff. So we've introduced like a unified Kanban board, as well as some native SharePoint connectivity. So this really helps, I think, break down some of those silos with between the BD, capture, and proposal teams are really now finally working from a single source of truth and streamlining some of that external collaboration to allow all those users kind of working. Um, yeah, I think the Visible 7.0 really acts as kind of a compliance fortress where, the tool's helping you instantly identify like risk terms, buried flow down clauses, compliance gaps, um, helping enhancing like redlining and amendment handling. Because anyone and I'm sure in your world, missing a single requirement, change in like a late stage amendment isn't just a typo. That's like almost like an immediately disqualification. So this really helps like in that proposal world, making sure again that you're compliant there and you're not going to be missing any of those requirements.
I didn't keep stats on this. My old office did major procurements, so it was pretty rare for a large company that had, invested, hundreds of thousands of dollars to have a legitimate compliance, like disqualification. But it happened. I mean,
Yeah.
and when it happens, like somebody loses their job.
Yeah.
Actually, I I actually have a kind of funny story about that if you want to hear it. But the small business side, um, we had non-compliances, a missing signature on a document for a letter of commitment, a certification, something, a screenshot of something that just wasn't present. And, they spent tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on their proposal, and just you're out.
Yeah.
The government incentive to not enter into discussions and then let everybody like fix their proposals is very high. So, you know, we felt a little bad, but we also realized it would lessen the amount of work we had to do whenever somebody was out. So you didn't really want to try and be helpful and fix something unless like this was really the best one and we just need
Right.
to go back and open them up. So yeah, the compliance side, particularly on small businesses, there were that difficult, hey, you missed something, emails and you're out, which then leads to possible agency protests and hurt feelings and, pleading phone calls of, can you just, let me submit a new piece of paper? And you just can't, like, then
Yeah.
everyone else will protest. So yeah, the system is designed to not let you fix a dumb problem.
It is. It is. And it's unfortunate. I'm sure you probably saw this too in your days that when you have these small businesses, maybe these new A-days popping up, a lot of times these companies have never done business with the federal government before or state and local government, and they think it's just as easy. Oh, it's just submitting a quick proposal and we're going to win this, and it's not. They're complex. They're very detailed requirements that, to your point, like you need to follow it to the letter of the T, and some of them find out really quickly, like, oh my gosh, we need to figure out like how to submit proposals, correctly, and whether that's going with like a Shipley's of the world or using any of these new tools that are popping up like VisibleThread or other AI proposal type tools. But that's only going to get you so far. You still need that manual intervention and thought process. Like you can't just have a tool do it all for you.
Yeah. All right. So the story, in my own office,
Yeah,
proposals were always due at the same time. No one could ever change the time because the time was important. Like it was 11 a.m. It's always 11 a.m.
yeah.
In my old office. So it was 1800 F, right by the White House, where whenever the president leaves, the motorcade goes out to go on E Street to 66. And this is in the before electronic proposals were the main thing. And we had a guy across the street with a hand cart and boxes, and it's like 10:30, and the Secret Service closes the road, and he's got to get there by 11 or he loses his job. And the
Oh,
Secret
like
Service guy's like, "You're not crossing this road, sir. Like the president's coming." And after like 15 minutes, and I'm on the other side saying, "It's okay. We can waive this requirement. Like I can sign the piece of paper." He runs across the street with the boxes, like with Secret Service chasing him down because he will lose his job. He will be fired if he doesn't get that box there by 11 a.m. And like a crowd has like come around and they start clapping because he didn't get shot delivering his proposal. It's one of those like very unique, dumb DC things that he was willing to take the risk for his company. I'm like, that guy deserves a raise or something.
Oh my god, that's amazing. I'm sure there are many, many more horror stories and proposal managers that dropped on a whim, had to get on a flight, they're like, same thing, "This is due at, 12:15 PM Eastern Standard Time." I know, there's been some changes where, like, on the SLED governments for a while, they were requiring you to submit it in a CD or a hard drive, and yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are millions of horror stories from a lot of the capture proposal managers on what they've had to do to get those proposals submitted on time. It's glad that technology has changed and allow delivery mechanisms a little bit more more streamlined and easier to get those in for sure.
If I was gonna write a book or do a different podcast, it would probably be called Unintended Consequences. And they're all, I mean, it doesn't matter whatever the era we're talking about today. Font size, the degree of resolution on a video, like there's a compliance manager on the other side that's reading the words that the government thinks is 100% clear, and they're like, but if like the aspect ratio was 4:3 versus 16:9, then it would change. And then like, what if they kick me out over it? Like just the anxiety of the compliance manager to get the thing to make sure that it actually doesn't lose. No one inside of government understands that 11 p.m. freak out that is
Oh my
like
god,
the
yeah.
team. So I noticed that you have some hockey jerseys in your background.
Yeah, so I'm from Chicago originally, so big Chicago sports fan, so I have, behind me there, it's a Patrick Kane signed jersey, from their dominant run in the 2000s. Then also have a Chris Bryant, Cubs jersey signed when they finally, got the monkey off their back and won the World Series, and then, a Walter Payton, the Sweetness, signed jersey back there for the Chicago Bears, so very, very proud of, my Chicago roots and, my love of Chicago sports teams.
All right. So then the question for me is something I recently learned from being in the O'Hare Airport for much longer than I planned on being. What are you not allowed to put on a hot dog?
Ketchup. No ketchup.
What's that from? It's like it's a bright line rule. It's like literally written on signs in like
Oh,
the
yeah.
Chicago airport. Like
That's a great question. I don't know what originally drove, like, the no ketchup movement. I've never actually, like, researched that, and I love watching, Food Network shows and, where they're traveling around different spots, and, yeah, they always bring that up, but I've never actually heard anybody, like, give a concrete reason why ketchup is not allowed on the Chicago hot dog. But for the life of me, yeah, I've never put it on either.
it could be that, it's opposition to the Heinz family in Pittsburgh. It could be like a little bit of a rivalry there.
There yeah,
But
there you go.
bringing it back to, the concept of knowing the customer, if you go to a game at Wrigley and you get a hot dog with ketchup, you will not be received well,
No, you would
because
not.
it's not knowing what's acceptable in that environment. So like
Yeah.
VisibleThread would have taught you to not order the ketchup with hot dog.
It's a bingo, head on.
So with that, um, I want to thank Tim for being on the Optimized podcast from VisibleThread, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Alright, thanks so much, Chris, appreciate the time.